Welcome back, 5011 fam.
We are barely here today. That's a homemade song that I made, and Adele
Come on,
can't sing it
barely
because she
here.
doesn't know how I feel today.
And we're totally going to be getting into that. If you didn't know, it's DiDi, it's Jay. We're doing what we do, y'all. We're having
Yes.
conversations that spark conversations here at the 5011 Chronicles.
Here
So
we
thank you
are.
so much for tuning back into another episode. Y'all, we're about to get into several things. We're getting into several
Yes.
things of all the things, all the bags, all the secret compartments. We're opening it all up. Yeah, we're getting
Hmm.
into several things this episode. So buckle in. If you're sipping on your cocktail, sip on your cocktails. If you got your
Grab your
conjunct,
wigs, secure
grab
them,
your wig, secure them. Yes. Come on,
because
lock.
Earth is
Let's get
spinning
buckled in.
fast.
And Mercury's on the way. So we will see you here on another episode of the 5011 Chronicles.
That was us time slipping.
Ooh, we're totally going to get into this time slipping thing, and we're totally keeping that in. So we're back. Here we are, another episode doing what we do.
Yes.
Um, I have to start with something because like D and I, we be talking,
Hmm.
and we're gonna get into. We've already like told y'all we watched the Loki
Yes,
season 2, so we're gonna get into that after our
we
break.
are.
So I'm gonna go ahead and give that preface. Those who are our Marvel nerds, hang in there because we got some words coming through for the kids at first. Like because there's been a lot going on. There's been a lot going on in the world, and I
Hmm.
don't know. It's so easy. There have been a lot of people I've talked to outside of my circle. I'll say in particular people that I encounter maybe at work or old colleagues or whatever, and we'll have conversations. And it's interesting because you catch a lot of people being caught up in the whirlwind of the hot messery happening around us, right? Like
Yes.
it's so easy to get caught up in all the distractions and all of like it's so much, so many distractions going on, so much going on. But I just kind of had this word kind of fall in my soul and my spirit that was like a reminder to me that I felt like it was necessary for me to share this with our them bam, like
Give us the
bring
word,
it to the
Jesus.
table. So the word that came to me is like especially when there is mayhem happening around you, this is the time when you're being tested to walk in your path. Like
Yeah,
you have to keep your eyes on the prize, essentially. You have to keep
period.
your eyes on the path and you have to stay in your lane. Like you can't be worried about everybody else's lane, what they doing.
Hmm.
It's not to say to be ignorant or unaware of what's happening around you, because definitely be kind of clued in, but there's a
Right.
certain level of detachment that you have to like. It's detachment isn't the word. Compartmentalization. You have to cut
Yes, that's
certain
a good
things
word.
off. Yes, you got to compartmentalize some of that and give it its own category and its own space and its own time. And then in those other times when you can activate that inner excitement, when you can, like I said before, make that baby leap inside and do what you're
Hmm.
supposed to be doing that excites you, that's your passion, then you're going to find that everything is still going to work out in your favor. Because when we're operating in our path, when we're magnifying that light, when we're living that truth that we're supposed to be doing, when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing here, the way that we're supposed to be doing it, everything around us begins to fall into place. Not to say
Yeah.
life gets perfect, but things begin to like, and what it's shown me, like, I'm going to give you a specific example because, yeah, that's a little broad. I get it. It's a little vague. Sometimes the kid be a little in his eon the bag and it just comes
Hello,
out that
young.
way because y'all know that's my TT. So,
Hmm.
so it's like this. Like for me, I've always had a difficulty with comparison, and it's only something that I've become kind of aware of lately.
Hmm.
And one thing that I've really wanted to embody, and I've envied about some people, especially because you have a certain level of this that I've
Okay.
envied, but it's a certain level of unbothered energy when it comes to other people.
Oh,
And be
yeah.
like, yeah, like I'm like that has nothing to do with me. Like how you're experiencing that, how you're doing all that you're doing, that has nothing to do with me. And really just owning my contribution to the situation, owning my reaction to the situation, and still staying in my lane.
Yeah.
So that unbothered thing has been something that has helped me so much lately in activating my path and staying on my path because I've seen that when I do that, things just start to flow. They start to flow a little differently. Even when the rest of what's happening around me is mayhem, there starts to be these little sprinkles of light on a path to show me,
Hmm.
hey, these angels, these spirit guides, these guardian angels, the divine is still looking out for you. Here's the path.
I
Just
know
keep on
that's right.
walking. Like, so that was my word I wanted to share because, like, for me, that has been something that's really been like reverberating inside my head. It's just been echoing to me to remind me, even as these these fools, these fools that you deal with sometimes on a daily basis. Um,
Child,
even as you
on this
deal with
planet,
idiocy, it's important for you to just maintain your grace, maintain your class, maintain your path. Like that's your business. They're not your business. You don't have to worry about them. I'll take
I
care of
have an
them. That's what
affirmation
Divine
for
said to
that.
me. Oh yes, give it to
Ever
me.
since I've been a teenager, my one of my favorite phrases, whenever somebody is like telling me the chaos is coming, my favorite phrase is sounds personal.
Oh
Period.
yes,
That's it. You just drop them with a sounds personal,
I
and
like
that's
that.
all. That's how the conversation will end. Because you
You
know what?
know,
That's a personal problem.
I love that. I love that because my little mantra has been, "Oop, that's not my business." I'll hit a situation, and I'll say it out loud. Like I usually say it in my head, but I've caught myself saying it at work. Like people will come up to me and be like, "Such and such and such." Oop, that is not my business. I'm gonna go over here while you finish talking about that because that's not my
Mm-hmm.
business. That has nothing to do with me or what I'm doing.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And I just
Nothing
want
to
to
do with our
say
conversation.
too, I am so glad that I know you because I ain't gonna lie. I've been in this weird space when it comes to like the male species of where it's like they get on my nerve. Like
Yeah.
I be remember I used to say 7 out of 10 are defective. I've moved it to 8. We moved it up
Hmm.
to 8. And we're just gonna add the women in with it at this point
Hmm.
because they cape for the 8 that are defective. They love to cape for them. They love. I was watching this video. She said, "Y'all be so quick to tie y'all cape on and choke yourself to death trying to save these." And
But she wasn't
I've
lying.
been like seeing all this stuff, and it's like everybody has like these relationship podcasts. Everybody has an opinion now. You can put it out there because we do it, so we can't hate
Hmm.
because we do it. But
Hmm.
it's just like when you got sense and you got scruples in your head where you can think, it's very, very hard to digest the idiocy that is the
Hmm.
8 out of 10 of these defective people. I'm gonna say people. What
Hmm.
he say they unstable creatures is what I'm gonna call y'all to.
Yeah. You
Like
know,
and I remember thinking, I'm like, I am so glad that I know you because you really showed me like what a male safe space is. Like I'm
mm,
able, even when we travel together, like I'm able to feel safe with you mentally, emotionally, and physically. Because I know, even down to like, I don't even know if you notice when you do it. Like I remember we was like just getting something out the car, walking in the Airbnb, and like you always make it a point of like we go first, we go before,
hmm.
like
Oh,
you
always.
make sure
Yeah.
everybody like you're such a safe space, and there you are the 2 out of 10 that exists, and I'm so grateful that
Oh,
I know
thank
you. I'm
you.
so grateful
Thank
for you.
you.
Like thank you for making me not be a part of the I hate all men club because I'd be this close
Oh,
and I'd be like, but Jay, there's
oh,
Jay.
well, thank
Somebody got
you.
some sense in the world. There's
It's
at
my
least one.
pleasure.
I know what
It's
he
how I
said.
was raised. I really have to
Period.
credit
Shout
Sheila
out to
with a
Mama
lot of
Sheila.
it because she would definitely be like, "So, are you getting the door? Like,
Come
you're
on,
not
are
getting
you
the door?"
getting
Like, I, I know one time she was just kind of like standing there. I was like, I got it, and then I would fight over grabbing the door with my stepdad, like all the time. Like, it was just like, no, it's my pleasure because, yeah, absolutely. So, thank you.
shout
Thank
out
you.
to you.
Well, we love to see it. We love to see it. And again, I really
Yes.
appreciate that. I think with everything that's going on, I don't know. I've tried not to get too into it. The
Yeah.
the situation going on with especially the things that are going on, globally are huge. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot, and it's so easy to get overwhelmed by all of
Mm-hmm.
the new developments. So I've had to detach them from that. Like
Yeah.
I'll read a headline here and there. I'll kind of stay updated on the big things that are happening, but I don't need to see all the video. I don't need to hear all the I can't it's not that's not
Yes.
a
I
safe
had to
space for me
detach.
right now.
I've had
It's
to
like I
detach.
have to detach. So even with the things like culturally and socioculturally that we're facing, we're looking at more when it comes to um Sean Combs and his
Child.
situation as it develops. And that's even been a situation where I'm like, man, like this is looking very familiar. And
Yes.
I can't be party to it like I was with the Surviving R. Kelly situation, because it was so much like, if there's a show to come out and then this goes into a whole big court case, I won't be surprised. Like, because at this point it is moving rather rapidly. Like, I think we're also
Yeah.
seeing a sign of the times. Like, I know D and I've talked about it, and I've talked about it with a lot of my close friends, but we've said it before, 5011 fam. Like, I don't know if y'all are looking and watching what's happening, but we've talked about this change in astrological age. God created
Mm-hmm.
everything. So this change in
Yes.
astrological age is to let us know, now that we have some form of knowledge of what's happening celestially, to let us
Mm-hmm.
know that there's going to be a shift. And this shift going into this age of Aquarius is one of age of discovery, age of exploration. The wool will be moved from the eyes. That's the big thing, is the veil will be opened,
Yes.
and the veil will be, is very thin right now, which is why things
Child.
have no choice but to come up and come out, you
That
know.
veil is thinner than Stephen A. Smith hairline. And I don't even know if you know who that is.
I know exactly who Stephen A. Smith is. And that, I'm gonna have to sip my cherry Moscato to that.
He made me mad
Well,
too this week. He said, and him of all people, I just got to get this off my chest. This don't got nothing to do with what we talking about today, y'all, but I just got to get this off my chest because him of all people made a post talking about how men should date women who are a 7. He said because the women who are 10s, they're established, like they know who they are, they bosses, they can leave you at any second. The women who are a 9, they think they a 10 and da da da. And he was like, but the women that's a 7, they gonna appreciate you more, and they ain't really got all their stuff together and blah blah. Basically saying date a woman with low self-esteem. But it was the fact that not only is he a 2, but his hairline and his personality are a 0. Who are the audacity? It's always the ones that look like that have the most audacity to sit there and think that you can demand a 7. You, sir, your hairline's not even a 7. Your height is not a 7. Your personality is not a 7. There's nothing 7 about you. Maybe your bank account got 7 figures. I don't know what he makes. So
oh,
that might
he
get
makes
you
the most money
in
on
certain
ESPN.
rooms. But sir, outside of that, there's nothing 7 over there with you. I
Mm-hmm.
need you to sit somebody like you is supposed to have a good personality. We're supposed to be able to say, but he got a nice personality though. He cool.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even say that. You just over there with just audacity and nothing to offer. Please stop. Like, please stop. I have to get that off my chest. Like, sir, please stop. I can't with him.
You know, I'm trying to find the words,
You trying to find the nice
because you
words.
said, that's it. That's I'm you know
You
me.
know the words. Say
You
that
know me.
kind.
I don't disagree with you at all. My big thing is, like, I really feel like it's 2023. Why are we still rating people
Why?
on a scale of 1 to 10?
But it's like
Why is that
that
still a thing?
mindset, but that mindset is a thing. Why
That
is women
mindset's a
having their stuff
problem.
together a threat? Why is us being successful a threat?
That is toxic masculinity at its finest,
It's
which is why I don't
confusing
watch
to me.
ESPN. And that's not to
And
say
then to
all of
think,
ESPN is that way, but
but the thing with him is he thinks he can't get a 10 because she got her stuff together. No, you can't get a 10 because you're you. Period. And
but
I know
that's
people with
actually a
great
big narrative.
personalities. Jay-Z is not the finest man in the world, but his personality, he's funny. You know, he's charming. So you understand, like, if you watch a Jay-Z interview, you'd be like, I see why Beyonce like him. He seems like
Hmm.
a very cool person. He's
Hmm.
funny, seems like somebody you can vibe with. No, not Stephen A. Smith with all his hollering.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I think it's wild, because it's also a reminder of this narrative out there about the state of, like, we've definitely talked about this before on our show, this shift in this power dynamic when it comes to women. Women are definitely in more
Mm-hmm.
positions of power than they've ever been in, making more money and more educated than they've ever been, and more
Well,
liberated
let's say though, in
and
in
independent
this timeline,
financially.
because before the
Hmm.
bronze, like the Bronze Age and stuff, we was doing our
Yes, in
thing.
this timeline, you're right. Yes, in this timeline, in the modern
Yeah,
era,
in the
in the modern
modern, yeah,
era. So for the modern
post
era, women,
colonization.
yes, yes, very that. Because, yeah, you're absolutely right. My original point was neglecting the remarkable things women were doing around the world prior to the modern era.
Yeah.
But okay, so modern era specifically, women are definitely a little, I would say a little more liberated, because the word liberation means like total freedom. And we've got to
Mm-hmm.
talk, I mean, like you can't say that and think about things like Roe v. Wade and like we got to be fully aware. So we made some backtracks there, but like
Yeah.
women have been able to step into more positions of power and have more financial security and independence than they've had before.
And we've
And you
become
have
enemy number one.
enemy number one. A lot of men have issues with a powerful woman, so powerful women now get this reputation of all, like, I think about like Being Mary Jane, because I feel like that character is a really a decent example of like that powerful woman who really like had she already had her own issues personality
Mm-hmm.
wise, but like even especially even looking at the dating pool and looking even Insecure, Molly, another perfect example of
Or
someone, and
deliver
again
us from
her own
Eva.
issue.
Eva.
Deliver us from Eva. Eva, another perfect example. Come on,
I'm
Gabrielle
Eva.
Union.
My mouth is Eva. So you know.
Your mouth and your protective energy is definitely Eva. So we're going to say that I see pros and cons. Hey,
Okay.
they're both there.
It's there.
Guilty, guilty, guilty. I don't know if you've seen that guy on TikTok, Prayag, who's like, they call him the sassy guy, and he's like, really, he be doing, it's the way you act, it's the way you act. Have you seen him?
No, I've never
Oh my
seen
gosh,
that.
the guy tickles me. But there's one thing, and it's actually going to lead to a point that I want to talk about in a second. So I'll come back to him. But the original point, like women, especially women who've gotten in positions of more powerful and powerful women in general, because it's not even just about being in positions of power. It's a woman who carries herself in a powerful manner that men are threatened
Mm-hmm.
by. And that is a testament to the type of man that is so prevalent. Like that 8 out of 10, I don't think is really a stretch from the actual population that in my opinion, as a man, is a problem. Like it's not just straight men, it's queer men, it's trans men. Like there's all
It's the
type of men of
patriarchy.
all. It's the patriarchy, and it's that empowerment that you get from
Mm-hmm.
the patriarchy that makes you feel again empowered to act and speak a certain kind of way. And I just completely disagree, because to me, someone who's really sure of themselves, really powerful, really dominant,
Mm-hmm.
really in their bag, that's an attractive quality. That's not something
Period.
that like,
And
oh,
that's
I'm threatened by that.
genderless.
No, that is genderless. Absolutely. Like, so that is not an unattractive quality. That's like, oh, that makes me want to step my game up because I got to match that energy. Like, I need to
Exactly.
feel the way you're presenting. Like, I want to feel like that. So I think that it's just an issue because, again, we know not all men are that way, which is why we have to give it 8 out of 10. But, not all men are that way. There are men who, again, are intrigued, fascinated, turned on
Mm-hmm.
by women who are powerful, who own their power, and they
Yeah.
will do everything they can to empower them even more. Because I think we are not having enough men who are having the benefits of the patriarchy and the systemic racism, because we talk about
Mm-hmm.
allies, but that's a whole nother episode. We're not having enough people who have that position of privilege bringing those who don't along. We don't have enough of that. Like, and I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that our communities, those marginalized communities, need the hand up, but I'm just saying, like, if you're going to talk about having my back and supporting, you got to show it, and the showing
Yeah.
comes in using your privilege. Off my soapbox. All
Absolutely.
right.
Do
Whew.
you know that the word virgin, it didn't originally mean like a woman who has never had sex. It had nothing to do with sex. So the word virgin originally, like the Greek original meaning was like a woman that was like one in herself, or like a
Mm.
woman that was without a man. Like that's what it originally meant. And then they kind of, with the patriarchy came, it kind of flipped
Mm-hmm.
it on its head and made it like, oh, this like pure woman who's like never been touched and all
Never been
these other
touched.
dainty little things that are supposed to be so cute, whatever. But it's like, even if you think about it, because it was supposed to be the intention of like an independent woman. So it's like for
Mm.
God to give Mary the baby instead of Joseph, and you know what I'm saying, to be like, oh, I'm gonna give, he gave her Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And you would have to give a woman who is like strong and one within herself in order to raise somebody like Jesus and not
Yeah,
mess it up. Because you mess
exactly.
it up, he could have
Mm-hmm.
he could have became another Lucifer for all we did. So it's like,
Ooh,
child.
it could have gone
And you
all
know what's
types of
funny?
badly.
So you know how people make it seem like anything that's not necessarily in the Bible verbatim as like witchcraft or like the devil and all this stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that. But if you think about it, Lucifer was an angel that fell from grace, right? He was one of
Mm-hmm.
God's children.
Mm-hmm.
Can't we all fall from grace? You ever notice how you remember on like the little on the movies and stuff where they have like an angel and a devil on their shoulders? And we all got a little Lucifer in us. We could all fall from grace at any moment.
We
All you
could
gotta do
all
is
fall
make the
from
wrong
grace.
choice. That's what free will is
Mm-hmm.
all about.
Mm-hmm.
It's choosing to do the
In
right thing.
fact, oh, you just really that really just awakened something in me, because if you think about it that way, especially he fell from grace, he brought fall from grace with him. Without him, there would have been no ability essentially for us to fall from
Period.
grace, according to the Bible. So it is because of his influence. So we all have to have a part of him in us in order for this whole salvation thing to work. I'm just saying.
Yep. And even if you
I'm,
think about your like shadow, like people
wow.
talk about their shadow in like this negative way, but it's like, who's gonna protect you? When
Come
something
on
when
now.
something bad happens or when something traumatic happens, who's gonna protect you? Your shadow is who protects you. Your shadow is the one that sets your boundaries for you and gets the girls together when the girls need to be got together. Otherwise, you're gonna be somebody, a people pleaser with bad boundaries. And child, I'm sure we both have experienced that life before.
Come on now.
I'm sure we both have been there and
Visit
don't
it.
want to go back.
Look, visit and has no interest whatsoever in going back. None whatsoever.
None. Okay. I didn't even buy a t-shirt. Okay.
That was a really beautiful point. I thank you for that. I love enlightenment now. Let me know something.
Listen, child, she been over
Cause
here sick, reading and learning. Okay.
I so that conversation about, we've talked about gender roles and men and women a ton on our show. And I think it's really I love that we have those conversations. There's been this circulating conversation that I think I brought up a little bit before on a previous episode, but I want to get into just a touch more about
Okay.
sassy men. Please tell
Oh,
me you've been following this sassy man conversation.
it's kind of, but not really. Only because, and let me just say this first. Let me just preface it with this, and I'm gonna let you get to your point, ladies. When you see a man do something that you don't like, and you equate it to femininity, who are you insulting? When you say a man is acting
Got
like a
together,
bitch, who are you
snatched up,
insulting?
snatched up,
Because I hope you ain't talking about me. Because
edges
them
detached.
men that be acting crazy, please don't equate them to me. Please stop calling them feminine. Because who are you insulting? When a man say something or do something out the way and you call him sassy, please leave me out of it. Because I'm sassy.
Period.
And I'm nowhere near as dumb as some of the people y'all are equating with sassy.
There it is. Please,
But go
the
ahead,
thing
make your
about
point.
it, the thing about it, just to piggyback off of that before I get into it, is like my mom and I, we were laughing about something. We've been like cleaning some things up and getting some old books out of the way, donating some things,
Have
old
we
things.
found
Just
the binder? No.
we have not found the binder. But we're looking. Let me tell you, if I find the binder,
Keep
you will
that out.
know. You will know. But we came across as a kid, I had I think it was a thesaurus, a really thick
Mm-hmm.
thesaurus, really, really thick. I mean, like, and anytime I'd be like, oh, well, what does that mean? Or what's another word for it? And she'd be like, oh, look at the thesaurus. I'm not about to tell you everything. Like,
That was my
and,
mom.
and
Look
I
it
had a
up.
dictionary. I had a dictionary, and of course, encyclopedia set, because we came from that generation. So I had the
Mm-hmm.
encyclopedias, had the African American encyclopedia,
Period.
had the dictionary and the thesaurus. And I think we kind of need to get back to that as a people, because you need to be able to find words to say exactly what it is that you mean, people.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about this whole sassy conversation that I love that's going around, I love it, because there are a lot more straight men who what people I guess would have called back in the day metrosexual.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more straight men who are sassy, who are coming out and saying, yeah, I'm very that, and this guy that I watch on TikTok, I'll see his TikToks. One of my coworkers introduced me to him, and he just really tickles me. But he's always like, it's the way you act. It's the way you act. Like it was never the way you looked. It's the way you act, like, so there was an episode, like one of his little TikToks, he said something like, I've seen this whole conversation about people saying I'm sassy. He was responding to a comment, people saying I'm sassy, and he's like, guilty, guilty, guilty. I've been that. I've been
Period.
that. Like, and I'm here for it because my thing is like we've, as a community, always equated femininity in men to weakness, femininity
Mm-hmm.
in men to queerness. That's not always true.
Yes.
It's always been seen as a bad thing for a man to be in touch
Like
with his
self-care for
femininity.
men is gay for
It's
some
gay.
reason.
No, that's what they'll say. That's what exactly what they'll say. Is that it's gay, and it's like I actually, while the show was on hiatus, there was an opportunity for me to go on another podcast and do a little interview and talk about like our podcast
Yes.
and talk about my cosmetic company and my skincare
Yes.
company. And in that, I was interviewed by a Black man, and we had a conversation about the importance of especially Black men kind of destroying some of that toxic
Mm-hmm.
masculinity and some of their perception of femininity. Self
The
care,
pause culture got to go. Stop
it
pausing everything, please.
please just play through it. Please, let's do some healing. Let's get
Let it
whole.
play.
Let's get whole. Like, because that's what healing is to make whole. It is to make
Mm-hmm.
whole. And the thing about it is if you think about a whole being, all of us, whether male or female, whether we were born male or female, or we have transitioned into what feels more comfortable for our being, whatever we identify as, we all came from masculine and feminine energy. And not just in the typical sense of there was a mom and a dad or whatever, but literally the energy that was passed down. We
Yes.
all should be possessing some form of masculine and feminine energy.
Yes.
It's almost like a tango between the two. It's a balancing
It's a
act
time and place
because
for all of the
it's a time
energies.
and place for everything because
Mm-hmm.
one should represent action and one should represent thought. One should
Yeah.
represent emotion and one should represent practicality. That is like the balancing thing. It's also left and right brain. Like it's everywhere. We call it different things. We've
Mm-hmm.
got to break some of those old thinking patterns. And
Yeah.
what I love is for there to be a community of men who are embracing that sassiness about them and who are
Mm-hmm.
okay because they're comfortable in themselves. And the women who are with them who are okay with those men
Yes.
being their best selves. Like
And I think
it's
that's
a shout out to
also
them.
important too, because it's because even somebody like me who says 8 out of 10 is defective, if you want the number to change, we have to create safe spaces for
Mm-hmm.
men to be who they are. And I
Who they
think
are.
that now I ain't gonna lie. Y'all are a part of y'all own problem because this is a patriarchy. We
Mm-hmm.
just playing y'all game.
No,
You
big
know what I'm
facts,
saying?
big
The
facts.
women
Mm-hmm.
were raised up to view men this particular way. You even
Mm-hmm.
think about when people talk about like, oh, women who have a father and they like a lot of their fathers operated from toxic masculinity. And so they
Yep.
look for that type of man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important, especially for our generation, because I've noticed it in our generation, there are more safe spaces in our generation than others. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to create that space for men to not only figure out themselves, but be themselves, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
may be, without
Yeah.
labeling it.
Without labeling it. That's a big problem I think that the world has, especially America, is everything has to be labeled. Why
Everything
can't
has
you
to be
just be? Why can't you just be?
I
Just
was watching something
be.
and he was talking about how like somebody had made a comment because you know how they not non-binary people go by they them, and somebody
Mm-hmm.
made a comment of like, oh, these people, some like here go these people, life's stressful enough, and then here comes these people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like pronouns existed before us. They were already there. Pronouns were already there. Just use them. It's not that hard.
Just use them. It's
You're
so
just
simple.
mad because it doesn't fit into your A and B box. Anything that
Exactly.
doesn't fit into A or B for you. And it's like, I don't understand why people feel like things can only be this or that. There's a spectrum with everything.
You know what's wild
Find your
about
spot
that?
and sit in it.
What's wild about it is non-binary people have existed long
Long
before the
before.
American patriarchy came about. It's nothing new. In fact, in other cultures, people who were identified as non-binary, they 100% were usually like praised by the community.
Yes.
They were usually elevated because they were considered to have a different gift or a different connection because of their balance between the energies. Same with people
Yes.
who had mental health issues or like people with schizophrenia, people who were bipolar, people who had different mental illnesses that we call them mental illnesses now. they were in elevated positions in the previous times before now, and not it's also I feel like part of like the diet and the things that we eat now has definitely made these things a lot more severe than they used to be when they originally came
Mm-hmm.
about. But that's neither here nor there because cancer was not a thing until it became a thing. It was not a thing until it became a thing. But okay,
Right.
so I just really think that that conspiracy theory that we are definitely further behind than we were in the past, like that the ancient civilizations were significantly more advanced than us, I definitely believe it. I
Yeah.
definitely believe it because they were so in tune with the divine. They were so in tune with one another. They operated like a well-oiled machine. It was like
Yes.
pray, do your farming, make your food. Everybody is cool. We finna go hunting. We about to make
Period.
some baskets and some clothes. We finna rear the kids.
Yes.
Everybody knew their role, and it goes back to that global. Everybody was doing what needed to be done for the
Yes.
greater. And now we're in such a siloed, isolated situation as a people. And the big like the virus definitely didn't like made that divide greater. But we're
Mm-hmm.
in this place where it's like we've said before, and I remember I had this conversation with my mom. It's like everybody can't be saved at this point. Like we are not gonna have the same civilizations that we had in the past where we was all working together and Machu Picchu came about or the pyramids of Giza came about. It's not that
Right.
anymore. Like
It's
it's
not.
too much has been done to desensitize the people that we need to, those of us who can align, need to align.
And if you think about it, like time isn't linear. A lot of what we're going
Mm-hmm.
through is like stuff that's it's like repeating itself,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just in a different aspect of whatever is going on in that time at the time.
Yes.
Because even if you look now, while there is a lot of chaos, there's also a large shift of people who are getting back into their spirit, getting more aligned,
Mm-hmm.
getting more
Absolutely.
natural, going
It's the
back to the
duality.
basics. Yes, like as the chaos is increasing,
Getting
so is
so
that.
is the yeah, so it, yeah.
Yes, and that's one thing that I do like to see that these spaces are being created. A lot of people are waking up and seeing what's going on around us because it's like it's been hundreds of years of putting people to sleep. It's been in the works for so long, and they're always so many steps ahead of us. And
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna like people have a little conspiracy theory that's gonna go into what we actually are talking about today. And you know how when I had you watch the butterfly effect, and
Mm-hmm.
I think did I watch the Mandela effect with you too? Did we watch that together, or did I just
I
mess you
don't
up with the
think
butterfly effect and you didn't watch
you
none of
messed me up with the butterfly effect. I was done after that. We didn't watch no more movies that night. Mm-hmm.
that?
No
But
more
like
movies.
when I think about like the butterfly effect or like the Mandela effect, and you talk about time slipping, and you think about these things like for example Chick-fil-A. I don't care what nobody say. There was a time where Chick-fil-A did not have a K in it. I don't care what nobody say. The Bearstein Bears, you think about it now, it's the
Mm-hmm.
Bear Stein Bear. I remember I had the book. You're not
Had the
gonna
books
fool
saying,
me. But I think like, what if a lot of this major shift is us time slipping and certain things that used to be our reality or we're in another reality and now they come in ours or like it's how like stuff will like shift out of place like something might have been in
yeah,
this
I know,
dimension and
yeah.
then we time slipped and now it's over here in ours.
You
And I was
know,
thinking about I'm like what if we be time slipping and you know how
so
even with the blip like
oh,
I don't care what nobody say 2020 was a blip. We went
it
through a blip.
was.
This year in general, nobody knows where this year went. Nobody can tell you where this year went. We can tell you what we did, but we can't tell you where this year
Where it
went. We
went.
don't know how we got to December. We just ended up here. We woke up, it was December.
You
What if
know,
we are time slipping?
that's brilliant. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take a super quick break, y'all. And when we come back from this break, we're going to continue diving into this. And I see how this perfectly connects with
Yes.
the Loki series that we watched and some things going on with
Yes.
Marvel because we always talk about art imitating life. So we'll see
Because
y'all
it
on the other
is.
side of this break because it is. Okay, so like time slipping. I had considered because there was this theory somewhere where they talked about whenever we get close to some like major cataclysmic event that's gonna like wipe everything out, they have a way in which they can shift us into another like time or another parallel universe or something, and we just kind of take that one over while that one's been destroyed, which is why
Mm-hmm.
there are so many Mandela effects and why it's begun to happen, I guess, more rapidly over the past few
Yeah.
decades. But I think that there's something for sure there, because the whole time slipping thing, for those who don't know what time slipping is, in the Loki episode, in the Loki season 2, he's doing this thing where he's being ripped from time
Mm-hmm.
essentially, and he's being like snatched from one time into maybe another timeline or another like the future or the past. He's just being
Yeah.
ripped from where he is and being snatched somewhere else. And it's really interesting that you use time slip and blip, even because blip, as we know, connects to Marvel, because
Yeah.
2020 definitely felt like a blip. Like even the number of people who left,
Mm-hmm.
it
Thanos
wasn't
went
the same,
on
but it
RBD.
was literally like it things have not been the same since 2020.
And I kind
Things
of
have
understood
not
where
been the
Thanos was
same.
coming from. I hate to say it, but I,
Absolutely.
I completely understood what he was talking about.
My
Totally.
issue with Thanos is because his was, I guess, what you would call logical and scientifically fair. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't emotionally fair to eliminate
Yeah.
50% of the population of the
Right.
universe.
And it
Like,
wasn't
because you
his
don't pick
choice. You don't get to
exactly.
decide.
You don't get to decide who's in the 50 that stays. Like, and I think that was, I don't know,
Yeah.
that's my
You're
whole issue with it. Because it's
the
like,
only thing was him playing God. You're not God, but I
you're
get
not
where
God's
you're
son.
coming
I
from.
get where you're coming
I think
from.
about snapping my finger every other day.
In it.
So I feel you. Every time I drive in Atlanta, I want to real fast and clear out
Mm-hmm.
half the traffic. I get it. Totally get it.
Yeah, I think it's wild, like because there is definitely, like we said, there's definitely something going on,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. These Mandela
And
effects,
Marvel
like
knows
even
exactly what's going
Marvel
on, and they're
knows
making
exactly what's
movies
going
about it.
on, and that's my thing. Is like it's interesting. So let's get into Loki because this was a
Yes.
brilliant season.
This was
It was a
amazing.
beautifully written, I think. And I was telling Dee as we talked about it before she finished the season. I finished it before her because y'all,
Yes.
when I start binging something, first it might take me a second to get into it, but once I
Mm-hmm.
start, it's over. Like
We're
it,
neurospicy. That's why it
it
always takes us a second. But once we in
yes,
for the
I
long
love
haul.
that. Neuro spicy. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I like that. Neuro spicy. So when I finished it, and we were having a conversation, I was like, have you finished it yet? She's like, I'm not there yet. But I was like, oh my gosh, like for me, the storytelling here,
Mm-hmm.
like I have never disliked Loki. I mean, when he was a villain, I'm like, oh, he's kind of funny. Like, yeah, I don't really take him seriously. They're gonna beat him. Like, they're gonna beat him. But
Yeah.
I didn't have the full appreciation. And then when the Loki show came out, like, when he died in what was that? Infinity War
He
broke
didn't
my
die
heart.
so many times. Who knows?
The
Look,
Infinity
died.
War
We gotta
death.
put died
Yeah,
in quotes
that
because
one. When he
child.
died in Infinity War, that death to me was the one when I finally was like, oh,
Yeah.
because it was like I just really was like I kind of like him, and then the show comes out, and I'm like I like him for real.
You
But this
can't watch the
season,
show and not like him.
you can't watch the show and not like him, and I think that that was really brilliant, a brilliant choice. Like I think that's what Marvel plans to do moving forward is they want to make more shows like Loki where they focus on
Mm-hmm.
characters that people like and they're able to further develop those characters that people really like. So we shouldn't expect to see a Captain Marvel show. Like we shouldn't expect to see her develop further other than the movies. And I know D is not the biggest fan of Miss Carol Danvers. She gives a big ill for her.
Child.
Right.
She can go.
But I think it was a very smart decision to expand Loki. And it was
Mm-hmm.
really a great way to introduce us and to continue the story of Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah.
Jonathan Majors, I know he's got a
I was
lot
gonna
of
say
stuff going
we
on.
shouldn't even use his name. We just gonna say the
We really
character.
shouldn't.
Because we can talk about the
Kang,
character.
yeah, we're gonna talk about the character. The acting is just so superb. I have to say that like
Yeah.
the acting is superb, but I think it's really interesting how this season they really focus so much on building Loki up for this to
Yeah.
be Tom Hiddleston's like supposed end of playing
Mm-hmm.
Loki. They really built this man up. And this
Yeah.
whole season, you really get to see how brilliant of a hero Loki is and
And if you
how
even if you I'm
genius
sorry,
he
go ahead.
is. No, you're good. Go ahead.
And if you even think about it, the way like people never took him serious and like that's intentional. Even if you think about Mufasa and Scar.
Mm-hmm.
Scar was the smart one. He just didn't have the brawn. You know what I'm saying? But he was
Exactly.
smart. He he just did he wasn't the biggest. So of course Mufasa becomes the king. If
Mm-hmm.
you think about Thor and Loki, it was the same thing. And their
It
dad
was.
told them, I don't remember which movie this. It's been so much in Marvel, but basically when
Yeah.
he told them like they're both gods and they both would be kings. And so if you think about even Loki's journey, Loki has always been counted out and really like kind of pushed to the side because
Mm-hmm.
Thor was like the strong, cute one or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But he's not that bright. He
He's
wasn't, you
not.
know what I'm saying? If you think
He's never
about
been
to
that
be the
bright.
god of mischief, think about how smart you have to be.
You have to be
You know what
mischievous.
I'm
Yeah, that's
saying? And
true.
it's like it's easy to create that can be anybody that's been outcounted, anybody who's been passed up on things that they honestly truly deserve could be
Mm-hmm.
anybody's villain origin story. I can think back on
That's
times in my
true.
life where it could have been my villain origin story. Because I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Think about your jobs and the people who are managers a lot of times don't need to be managers.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, privilege or nepotism, they get a spot that they don't deserve. That could be
Mm-hmm.
anybody's origin story to become
That
a
could be.
villain. It's so easy to do. And
It's
then
so easy.
because people already discount you, as soon as you do one thing they don't like or make one mistake, that becomes who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like if somebody's always telling you this is who you are, you start to believe it. And so you just kind of accept it, like, well, people gonna feel this way anyway, so I might as well just be who you think I am. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And he never
Yeah.
really got the chance to show who he was or come into his own because he was always in Thor's shadow.
Thor Shadow. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's like
I think that
he was always there,
he
right
was.
in
He
front of us.
was. I think that's like what I really liked about this season, because last season to me was really good. It was funny. I loved the ending being so brilliant in that last season, them meeting He Who Remains and finding out that he's
Yes.
like had his hands in everything. He's writing this moment as it happens and knowing what's going to happen. What's crazy to me is like this season, that first season, Loki is like, shook when he arrives. You've been pruned from the timeline. You've been snatched. We're about to try and take you up out the game unless you can help us. But this one, it's like he's trying to remind them of who he is because he's come back into a different timeline where things played out differently. And him being in this different timeline, it's interesting because once he stops time slipping so much, because he's really
Mm-hmm.
time slipping like crazy at the beginning. Once he stops time slipping so much and he has opportunities to show where his power has elevated. Do you remember that scene where he's going and snatching old dude up, this who was the movie star, and they went down the little
Oh,
alleyway?
what was it, Brian or something like? Or
Yes,
what was his
something
name?
like
Was
that.
it Brian?
Yes, I think it might have been
Or
Brian. I think it might have been Brian,
yeah,
but he was one of the agents, and this was like his superstar life on Earth. And
yes.
he went to go snatch him up, and where the shadows grabbed him. First of all, Loki was really showing power this season.
Mm-hmm.
Like was giving, let me show you what I can do. And my
Yes.
favorite, it's so crazy. I loved the whole season. My favorite part though is when towards the end of the season, he's like trying to save everybody and he's trying to
Mm-hmm.
like stop the destruction. So he does literally everything because now he has control of time slipping. So he's
Yes.
controlled his time slipping. He's like, I'm gonna go. And if y'all didn't know, there's spoiler alert. So boom. But the show's been out. It's been
We
over for a
told
month. So
y'all we was
that's
gonna
on
talk
you.
about
We
it,
told you we was
child.
gonna talk about it. And you had well enough time. So he's
Okay.
managed to like control his time slipping. And that episode, which I think is the last or next to last episode, where he does all this time slipping, he's going back and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost funny. It's almost funny because
Like
he's
over
going
a
back
hundred
so
years.
much and he like do all this. He goes and he masters physics. He goes and now he understands this and
Yes.
he understands how everything works, only for him to realize like I have to go even further back. And he goes all the way back to the previous season. That was a brilliant writing right
Yes.
there. And the conversation that happened between him and He Who Remains, where he's like, so you haven't figured out how to pause them yet? Because when he looks at him, he's like, do something. And he pauses her. And he's like, okay, so you hadn't figured out how to pause people yet? Like, He's like, so you've known I've been doing this? He's like, yeah, I've been knowing what's going on. Like, I
Yep.
wrote this. Like,
Yep.
what? So it's like, even knowing that the first season was written to end that way so that the second season could happen. I mean, it's
Marvel is
all
genius with stuff like that. That's one of the
genius.
things I love the most about Marvel. But you know what's
So
crazy?
genius.
Even with all of like the time slipping and all the stuff like that, the overall arc of it, nothing worked until he was in alignment. Because at the end of the day, this was destined to happen from him being a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if y'all noticed, he repeated the same thing from the movie when he was a child. He said the
Mm-hmm.
same thing right before he walked out there to
Mm-hmm.
become the god of stories or whatever he
God of
became. Because
stories, yeah.
they said he's not the god of time. I think it was a god of stories
He's
or
the God of
something.
stories. Yeah, he's the God of
Yeah.
stories.
And it's like literally all of his life, he wasn't living in alignment with his destiny. He wasn't living in his life the way he was supposed. And as soon as he lined
As
up
soon as he
with his
aligned,
destiny and did what it was meant to be done from the beginning, that's the one time that's when it finally worked. The whole time it's like, sir, it's you. You got to go, because he was making me so
that was
mad
my
going
thing.
back
I
and
was getting
forth
so
trying to speed
frustrated.
up. I'm like, Loki, you got to go.
It's
You go out
you.
there, go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I don't know what's gonna happen. So it's like, but in my mind, I'm like, sir, you
I,
go out
I
there.
think it was literally that lesson. It's almost like it makes me think about like our friendship, how people can see something in you and know what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do, but until you know that that's what you're supposed to do, you don't
Yes.
do it. Like that, it literally felt like that because I don't know. This season felt more comfy. I don't know if that's a good word
Yes.
for it, but it's almost like you were in it, like just in the mayhem.
We
Another
was
character
along for
that
that ride, honey.
I loved OB and the whole connection between
Yes. I
OB and
loved
Victor
OB.
Timely. That whole little
So
because did
cute.
you catch
And when
that?
they
Did you
met
catch
each
that?
other, oh,
That when
that
they
was so
meet,
cute.
did you catch that their relationship isn't Ouroboros, which is his name? Because you
I
can't
didn't
if
even.
you go, okay, so think about it. Victor Timely is technically the he who remains. He's technically the
Mm-hmm.
one who created the TVA.
Right.
Well, OB was taught by Victor Timely everything that he knows, and he wrote the book on the TVA, the Time Variance Authority. He wrote the
Mm-hmm.
book on. He couldn't have done what he did without Victor Timely. Come to find out, Loki brings Victor Timely to meet OB, and and OB's like, yeah, everything I learned from a man named Victor Timely. This was their first time meeting. It was a
Mm-hmm.
literal Ouroboros because it's like, what came first? Did Victor Timely come first in creating the TVA? Did Ouroboros come first? Who actually created the TVA? Because
And
they both
even,
credit
yeah,
each
because
other.
that Timely used that book to become who he became
Exactly.
as a
And
child.
he wrote that
Yes.
book, but he wrote that book only from what he learned from Timely.
Yes. That
So
is like a chicken or
they're
an
a
egg. Like,
literal
what
they're
came
a literal
first?
Ouroboros, and I loved that little like sly like
Can we
Easter
talk about
egg
Miss
because
Minute, honey? Miss Minute, girl.
she was ridiculous.
Child, when Miss Minute said that I could be your girl, the way I cackled, I wish we could have watched. I was dying laughing. And it's like because at first I could tell that she wasn't feeling how what's the remind me the lady name. Start with R.
Ravona.
What's her name? What you say?
Ravona.
Ravona. She already wasn't feeling how they was about, and I already peeped it, but I didn't think
Mm-hmm.
she was gonna take it when she put her head on that little mannequin. It was like, I
That
could be
was the
your
part for me. I could
Miss
be your girl.
Minute, girl. You done took us through all of this because you wanted to be the first lady. Get out of here. Get out of my
He
face,
said, "Why did you never give me a body?" It's like,
girl.
ma'am, this is his
Miss
first time
Minute,
meeting you.
and then you are an AI. And that's what we talked about. I think we talked about this on the AI episode about them like gaining sentience and like really
Yes.
emotions and stuff like. I was like, Miss Minnie, you didn't took us through all of this because you wanted to be
You
the first
know,
lady.
she's the perfect example of what happens because she even said he created her to be sentient. First, she was just to play chess, but he allowed her to be sentient and to write her own programming.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's going to make that mistake if they haven't already.
Oh,
Someone's going to make that mistake. And a lot of people are going to have to deal with the consequences of that mistake. Like,
we
because
saw it in iRobot. We know it's gonna happen.
we've seen it
Ex
in
Machina
so many
happened in
things.
that one too. I don't know if you've ever seen
So
Ex
many
Machina,
things.
but
I don't know if I've seen Ex Machina. I've seen
you should
iRobot.
watch it.
Um, I mean, so many examples of Smart House, we saw it there.
Yep.
Like
The
even
one with
Disney was showing it.
Johnny Depp where he had the AI. Every AI we see this.
Megan was an AI too. So it's literally like it's really interesting because again we've got this art imitating life thing. Okay, so
Yeah.
before we get out of here, because for those of you who haven't seen Loki, you really have to see it. I don't know if this is really going to be the end for him. I really think what's going to happen is they're going to bring another version of him in, and I hate that because I've
I don't
fallen
want
in love
another
with
version.
Tom Hiddleston as Loki, but
Yeah.
I think it might be Kid Loki just with how things are panning out. They might bring the kid version, which is really interesting. But on a different note, before we get out of here,
Hmm.
Dee was talking to me about something that I feel like is a little important to bring to the table. Could you please
Okay.
let the people know what Miss Lady Adele had said? Because I was quite
So
confused.
Sister Adele and her turban came on down to the people.
Week.
Sister Adele with her turban and her profile and her black and white image, channeling her best Jill Scott impression. She came on down to the people, y'all. And she did an interview and she let the girls know that y'all can't sing her songs. She don't want you singing her songs because not only did you not write her songs and you can't feel her songs, y'all can't sing. Adele said y'all can't sing. She said y'all ain't got the vocals to roll in the deep with her. Okay. She said y'all is chasing these pavements and y'all ain't getting nowhere because y'all
Getting
can't
nowhere.
sing and you can't feel how she feel because you didn't write
Ah,
it.
you didn't write it.
And as a singer songwriter, how do you feel?
Oh, as a singer songwriter, I have to say this because there's different ways to be considered a trained vocalist. I just have to give this quick preface. There's trained vocalists who started in the church and
Mm-hmm.
trained vocalists who started in the school. Those are the two types. Well, I started in the church and I sang in the school. So I
Period.
understand music. I understand music, the writing, this is my thing, is I am an Adele fan. I have to start with that. I
Mm-hmm.
love Adele. I've
Yeah, we
grown
like
up with a
Adele's
lot of her
music.
music.
It's
I
good
love her
music.
music. Love her good music, very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Miss
But we can't feel
Adele
it
is
though, apparently,
not.
because we didn't
This
write
is
it.
my thing. Miss Adele, you sing okay, you sing
Mm-hmm.
okay, but you're not singing down like that. Just so
You
we're all
ain't
clear,
singing.
you're not singing at all. It's Blue Eyed Soul, and it's called that for a reason.
Period.
Um, because this is what I know for a fact. What I know for a fact is Adele has benefited a ton from her white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just let it be known. There have been so many black
Let's talk
thick
about it.
women to come through singing chasing pavement type songs. Let's
Come
call
on.
out Miss Jasmine Sullivan. Tons of
Period.
black women coming through singing rolling in the deep type songs, and it's been
Come on.
happening for years.
Come
For
on.
years. That is
Who
our thing.
inspired you, Adele?
Come on now,
That's what I
Aretha
want to know.
Franklin. That's one of her biggest inspirations is Aretha Franklin. So before you even affix your lips to say
Okay.
that, Adele, let's actually think about who has inspired your music because it's not
Hello.
just your life. The style of music that you create, if it were sung by someone black, would be easily just classified R&B. Because it's sung by you, it's called pop, and it
Thank
is
you.
sent out to the masses. So that just needs to be understood.
Period.
Point blank. Second thing, Miss Adele, Miss Ma'am, um, I give your voice a solid 7.5 on a great day.
Period.
And if you were to have to do a head to head with a Jasmine Sullivan, with a Jessie J,
A
with a
Kelly
Kelly
Clarkson.
Clarkson, right? Because that must be who you think you are. You're really coming off like
That
Iggy
is who she
Azalea.
thinks she is.
You're coming off like Iggy Azalea right now, and you need to read the room because it's coming off really tone deaf. It's
Mm-hmm.
coming off, and you have visited tone deaf, so let's not. I've seen the live performances, and I love you. I think you've got a wonderful sense of humor, and I think you have a wonderful story, and I love your music. But let's not act like you are 10 out of 10 all the time because you're not.
Hello.
It's not giving that. So, yeah, let's maybe like reel back a little bit on the privilege and on the
Mm-hmm.
entitlement and read the room and think about reality. Because if it came down to a versus, you might be able to rock and sway and sing your music. But if you're coming up against any of the sisters who be singing down that we know, you don't stand a chance.
And let's be clear, you think that we can't sing your songs because we can't express your emotions? Girl, the only reason why we rocking with you is because we get it. We understand it. You are
You
not
think
the
we don't
first to
understand
feel
heartbreak?
pain and heartbreak, sister. She acts like it's this complex emotion that she's putting in these songs. Girl, it's not that complex.
It's
That's
not
why
that
we can
hard.
relate.
That's why we get it.
That's why we sing it the way we sing it, because we can relate. And for the people who can sing, baby, they be singing it better than you. No shade.
Period.
You don't want to put yourself in that arena and have the girls start covering your stuff just to prove a point.
Just to prove a point, just to spite you.
Because, baby,
All
they going to
right?
eat you alive, sis. Like,
And spit
you
you
be
out.
singing what you sing.
But
You
they be
sing your
saying it.
songs very well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Don't get me wrong. But you ain't singing them to where they're not reachable. Like when Beyonce did that run, that I can't do the run.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, the girls was struggling to do the runs that
To do the
Beyonce was
run.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
The girls can't sing Halo. That's what the girls can't sing. Okay? But the girls
Yeah,
can chase a pavement or two. They can
they
do it.
can. Very that.
They can roll on in deep with you. They can do it. You
Yeah,
ain't
that's
running
wild.
around like that. You ain't
That's
the vocal
wild.
Bible, sis.
Well, y'all, it wouldn't be us if we didn't finish the episode with a little read.
For the
So
culture, go
thank you
listen to Selena
so
Johnson.
much. Right. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the 50 Them Chronicles. We love y'all, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Peace.
Ooh, hey.